Hello, everybody. Welcome. It's another edition of Let's Talk Broncos. And guys, I could not stand on that hill. I've done it before, and I've heard there are bleachers now. Um, the hill was enough for me. The metal bleachers I could not do. So we had we had to bring in, of course, Zach Seegers and a very special guest, Ryan Edwards, to the show because I don't know what's happening out there. I needed two very, very knowledgeable people who I would trust in this, and who's better than Ryan Edwards. So, Ryan, welcome to the show. It's a pleasure to have you back. And how are you doing?
What an intro. I love it's too hot for me, so please come on here to the podcast so you can explain it to everybody. I love that. It's great.
Hey,
Good to be back with you guys, Joey, Zach. Appreciate you guys.
We have the shade, at least, media nowadays, either leaning up against the building or with the tent. We've got
right.
some protection.
That's exactly right. No, and you know what, Zach? I mean, yeah, as a credentialed media member standing next to me in the shade, you know, we tend to complain even like it's still so hot. It's so hot out there. But you're right, Joey. We have nothing to complain about compared to the fans that are sitting in the stands or the ones in the berm. I've been on the berm before. In fact, even as a media member, there were years there where that was the only option we had. So it's my 16th year covering the Broncos. I've been all over the place. But yes, I agree. It gets pretty dang hot.
And Ryan, I'll have you know, you can ask Zach. I say this every single year. I can't do it, man. Like, seriously.
He's like an old lady.
I'm very impressed by the two of you and the fans. Like, that is a thing. Like, the real fans are at Broncos training camp because they're fighting through it. You can't bring enough sunscreen. But anyways, let's get into the meat and potatoes of the show. The first thing I wanted to hit was the Drew Sanders injury. Now, we got more clarification on that. At first, carted off, right? It sounded like this was going to be a huge deal where he was going to miss potentially the entire season. It's when you hear carted off, that's what I think, at least. Now it comes out that, hey, he will make a return at some part during the season. I guess my question to you, Ryan, and I'll throw it to you first, is how much does this hurt his chances of even like making the team? Does it? I know now that like this is a multiple time thing for him. It's been hard for him to see the field. How do you gauge that injury?
Yeah, I mean, it's a good question because you do have to sort of weigh that out, right? I mean, he's got another year, I think, on his contract after this, if I remember correctly. And or no, maybe this is his last year now that I think about it. I'm trying to map it all out in my head. But the point of it is that, yeah, we're kind of it's getting long late here, right? I mean, you're thinking about in terms of what his history is with the Broncos, and most of it has been marred by injury. Last year was the Achilles, and I know a lot of fans almost immediately thought that this was just going to be another Achilles injury, and then we're grateful it's not. I guess if the Broncos feel the prognosis is that they could have him inside of the first month of the season, first 2 months of the season, I think he's going to stick around. They had a plan for him. And again, maybe you get another injury, say Alex Singleton, Dre Greenlaw, those guys are both coming off injury. You got Lavelle Bailey here. You certainly can go into waivers, and they've shown their propensity to do that. They did that last year. But I'd say for the Broncos that they'll probably keep him around for a little bit. They'll see what Lavelle Bailey can do. They have Justin Sternad here as another option also. So they have a little bit of depth at that position right now. But certainly you're thinking sort of long-term about this, and it's like, okay, well, if he has another kind of lost year, which these have all kind of been lost years for him, it becomes kind of a conversation on kind of what's the point of this. And that was what it was with Greg Dulcich, and this kind of feels similar.
Yeah, I mean, you got to feel bad for the guy, too, at this point. He's been thrown around multiple positions. It's been even hard for him when he is healthy to find a footing in the league. And now the injuries start piling on as well. It's like, can the guy get a shot? We kind of want to see what he would look like. Zach, what is your opinion on this?
It sucks because it felt like he was maybe finally getting some momentum down the stretch last season. And I was, maybe a little doubtful, but excited to see what we could get from him. I felt a little sketchy about how shallow that room looked in general and maybe putting all that on his plate right away. But I was excited to at least see what could come of it. And maybe if he could finally live up to all the pre-draft hype, it was a surprise the Broncos got him in the third round. There was even some first round buzz, but like Jack Campbell, I think ended up being the highest drafted linebacker in that draft going in the first round. A lot of people thought that would have been Drew Sanders. So it just sucks to see it go this way. I think because he's still relatively raw in this inside linebacker role. You know, he popped at Arkansas that last year, but that's really the only season of his football career. He's been at inside linebacker the whole time. It seemed like this year was the goal, healthy, get him back on that track. And, once you're in the season, even if he comes back week 2, week 3, once you're in the season, it's like, how do we win this week? It's not about how can we develop this guy. Right now, there's an element of how do we develop this guy. And so I think him losing these reps in particular really hurts, but rooting for him. And I thought he was done when he had the Achilles, and then he came on and had his best NFL showing yet. So I won't put the nail in his coffin yet, but I'm worried. And I would maybe bring in another camp body because, we're worst case, just get a little extra depth out there. I think Lavelle Bailey, the one day I was good at training camp, had a great day. So, maybe that's something, but I'm a little worried now.
Yeah, Zach, and you alluded to it. And Ryan, I'll ask you what kind of Zach was just saying is, do you think this now begs like the question, do the Broncos need another inside linebacker? Of course, Alex Singleton coming off of injury. Dre Greenlaw kind of has a history of injuries as well. Do the Broncos need a body back there, more someone they can trust as a backup, in your opinion?
I don't know if you need somebody today for like somebody you can trust. I think if you're in season, like when they lost Alex Singleton, I think that's a different conversation. Then you can go find the Zach Cunninghams of the world. Those guys are out there, and that's not meant to be a negative thing. That's just kind of what the league is, right? I mean, those guys are kind of waiting around as well. They're injuries are going to happen and they'll pop up. Drew Sanders wasn't a starter for the Broncos, so you don't need to go out and get a guy that can plug in as a starting caliber player, a veteran player. I like Zach's point there about a camp body. I think you could bring in somebody who's developmental if you've had your eye on somebody out there. Certainly around cut down. If your Drew Sanders is going to be out for a month plus, then you could say, all right, well, hey, we feel pretty good about Dre Greenlaw, Alex Singleton, Justin Strnad, and Lavelle Bailey. That's our 4. But maybe we're bringing somebody up from the practice squad, and that's some signing that you're looking for on cut down. And that's another point to this that I think is kind of under the radar. We had talked about Alex Singleton as a possible camp casualty, right? A cut down casualty because of his contract and because you brought in Dre Greenlaw. What does this injury do for Alex Singleton's spot on the roster? I think it only solidifies it.
I think that's a great point. Yeah. I don't think you can lose depth at this point. If you have a guy that's been there and has been a starter for your team, you probably want to keep him around after. I would consider Drew Sanders kind of a prospect. After your prospect goes down, you have no one potentially who could take that spot. So you're totally right. I agree with you. Well, more on a positive note, I would say, or I would ask, Ryan, who has been a surprise for you or on the offensive side of the ball as far as who's played good, in your opinion?
Yeah, I mean, again, it's so early. To borrow Sean Payton's point, because he was asked about Troy Franklin, and Troy Franklin had a great practice on Friday, and so then it was just like, okay, hey, what do you think about Troy Franklin? He's like, guys, it's really early, but Troy Franklin has had a nice offseason. You certainly like the momentum that he's built up so far. I thought yesterday's practice was a great Marvin Mims day, which is good to see because I think oftentimes when we get into the Pat Bryant and Troy Franklin and the excitement there, we already kind of know what Courtland Sutton is. I don't think we need to talk a lot about Courtland Sutton unless something else happens. We know when the season starts what Courtland is going to represent for this team. Evan Ingram, I think every single day continues to flash. He's going to be a pivotal part of what this offense is going to do. I thought yesterday was a nice couple moments for RJ Harvey, though. Again, when the pads come on tomorrow, I think we're going to get a better idea of what the running game looks like. But the weapons, oftentimes from a national perspective, these guys are looked at and say, well, I don't really recognize a Jamar Chase or a Justin Jefferson in this group, so I'm going to rank this pretty low. It's a very competitive group out there. Really, 1 through 6 in the wide receiver, and at least the top 3 running backs seem to be pretty set. But yeah, some nice moments from all those guys, and like I said, you just want to see some of the younger guys take those necessary steps because it's only going to help give them some more run this year. And again, it gives you an opportunity if for some reason hey, you get to the trade deadline and you don't think you can work something out long-term with Cortland Sutton, or on the defensive side of the ball with Nick Bonito. Well, if these younger guys are stepping up, then you can start to think about and picture in your mind, okay, well, now we have some cost-effective options that are already playing at a high enough level. We want to give them some more run. So to give you a long answer, I think that those are some of the names that have popped so far for me.
That's exciting. I mean, the Marvin Mims ones excites me a ton. That's been somebody I've been just really like talking about a lot, in that I don't know why it feels like there's kind of a general consensus that he is what he is and he can't improve. I don't understand it. When we don't bring the football aspects into it, I understand the numbers, what he did last year, but tell me why he can't improve upon that. And it feels like there's not any good answers. No one's told me why he can't. So I love to hear the Marvin Mims point. Zach, I'm going to throw the same question at you. Who shocked you on the offensive side of the ball?
Really quick, I just want to follow up because I wasn't there yesterday. I was there on Friday when Troy Franklin kind of popped off. What do you think characterized Marvin Mims having a great day? Was it more the downfield outside receiver stuff we've been wanting to see, or was it more of him just being the electric ball carrier where we're more used to?
Yeah, I think that what stands out, it's something that we've been wanting for a while, to Joey's point of seeing a little more traditional route tree, seeing a guy that's out there running receiver routes, not just doing kind of gimmicky stuff out there, catching passes behind the line of scrimmage and hoping. He's doing more than that. And he caught a nice cross the middle pass in stride from Jarrett Stidham during practice. I want to say it was Stidham. I don't know. It was hot. And so that was a really cool moment, and he took that upfield, and there wasn't a single DB out there that's going to catch him when he gets ahead of steam like that. So there was just a couple of really nice moments from him. They did a lot of red zone stuff yesterday, and there was some on the same page issues that Bo Nix was having with both Vele and Pat Bryant. So it's nice to know Marvin Mims, who can really shake loose in some of those tight quarters as well. He was kind of utilized a couple of times there, and of course Cortland Sutton and Evan Ingram were there as your taller guys in the back of the end zone catching passes. They're going to be there for that, but you want to see your other options, especially with some of these younger guys. Maybe there are going to be some days where it doesn't quite click the way you want it to, and it's not to say anything negative about Devon Vele. He's still really special. So is Pat Bryant. I'm very excited about him, but it was definitely, in my opinion, a bigger Marvin Mims day yesterday than it's been so far.
That's great. Love hearing that. And Troy Franklin, I'll shout him out. I know Ryan kind of already did, but man, on Friday, I'd been counting him out. I think I'd been saying how I think Marvin Mims is such a big X factor player, and I think he is, but largely because I was like, who else is doing it? Because I'm not buying the Troy Franklin stuff. And seeing him on Friday, he looks like radically different. Like it just physically, he does not look like the same type of dude. And Ryan, I should definitely be eating some humble pie now. You're right. I'm with you on the receivers in terms of it being locked in 6. We at least have some common ground there. But yeah, Troy Franklin, I just think, man, I was wowed by what I saw on Friday. It did not look like the same guy. Every single deep ball that went his way, he caught, which, we got to see if he can still do that when the lights get bright. Sure. It was good to at least see that. And then the other big hole in his game, which was kind of the struggling with contact or physicality, really struggling to get off the line of scrimmage, even at times. He looks more like the 6'3" wide receiver. Like if you told me last year that guy's 6'3", it would be like, really? Is he? Because he was so scrawny. He looked like a Montrell Washington type receiver when he really wasn't. Now he looks like I think the height weight. You were getting a height speed package before. Now you're getting a height weight speed package, I think.
That's great to hear too. I mean, Ryan brought up Marvin Mims. You brought up Troy Franklin as well, and then Marvin Mims and Troy Franklin, these are skill sets the Broncos need. They need the speed on the roster. I mean, you saw the difference from when Marvin Mims wasn't in the lineup or getting many snaps last year to when he did. Drastic change in the offense. You just need somebody who's able to take that 3-yard pass and maybe break it for 10, 15 yards. You need that. You need somebody to make the play right sometimes, and that's the capability of Troy Franklin's and Marvin Mims on your team. So I love that those two are being shouted out here. That's fantastic. Now moving over to the defensive side, Ryan, here's a question I have for you is, a name that I feel like it's a lot of slander and unnecessary slander is Riley Moss on the Broncos. Have you noticed anything out of Riley Moss? Can you tell me, does he look more like the player we saw in the early starts of the year where I was saying, hey, the Broncos might have the best cornerback tandem in the league, or towards the end after that injury where maybe he was being unfairly judged?
I think he looks great. He looks like he did reminiscent of last year training camp when we kind of were going, okay, maybe he, he's going to get picked on, but it looks like he's ready for it. So I think Riley Moss looks great. They've been, again, predominantly outside. They've had Jahdae Barron at times giving some opportunities there, but it's been mostly Riley Moss running out there. I can't give away too many of the details, but Zach can confirm with a head nod that he's seen some similar things. So yeah, we've seen Riley Moss out there. I think he looks fantastic. And it's a really good group. It's a really deep group. And I think the beauty of this is it allows you to bring Jahdae Barron along because you have Jaquan McMillan already sort of set in there as your nickel. And, I know there's some stuff out there about Riley Moss getting traded and McMillan getting traded. They love their depth in the secondary. They recognize those are all premium position players. I would be stunned if they looked at that position and said, let's go ahead and move some of these guys. Now, if there's somebody further down the depth chart, like, say, a Mario Goodrich or something like that, maybe that's a different conversation that they feel like they can get something from him if he pops during the preseason. But for the most part, I look at this room as they're very excited, and they recognize how important it is for the success of the defense.
I love to hear that.
Zach, they might have,
you tell me.
They might have 5 corners better than the Dolphins' best corner. I mean, it's crazy. You have the big 4, obviously, but then even Chris Abrams-Drain, I thought looked pretty solid last year and is in the mix. I almost feel bad for him because I don't know how he's gonna get snaps. Like last year, at least he'd be getting some looks in the dime, but because he's plenty talented enough to deserve them. But
Chris Abrams-Drain had a really beautiful PBU in the red zone yesterday. So to your point, and I'm glad you brought him up because he oftentimes, Damari Mathis, Chris Abrams-Drain, right? Those guys, you kind of write them off. You're not thinking about them very much. Damari, I think, has had a couple of struggles. He certainly had a struggle on Friday. Got really burned bad by Troy Franklin. But otherwise, he's looked all right so far, running kind of with that third team, second team stuff. But Chris Abrams-Drain, I'm a huge fan of. And, just on Pat Bryant, man, he was right there, Johnny on the spot. And that's a tough guy. I mean, he's got incredible hands. Pat Bryant's got unbelievable hands, and he swatted that thing out of there. Riley Moss had a PBU in the red zone on Pat Bryant as well. So both those guys really showed out.
And to echo what
I'm excited. Go ahead. I just had to say that. Go ahead.
No, I really don't have many negatives from camp. I mean, Lucas Kroll's not going to be repeating as training camp GOAT. I think that's safe to say. But beyond that, I really don't have many negatives. And then even that, I think you could frame it more as like Lavelle Bailey made a couple great plays. But yeah, Riley Moss, I'd echo what Ryan said there. I thought he looked great. One rep stands out in particular where I think it was Bo targeting Sutton deep down the left sideline, and Moss just pinched out the route, left no window for the ball to go into, and it fell incomplete. I think you see the same guy you saw at the front half of last season. There's been like this Riley Moss mystery this offseason. Like, what are they going to get? Like, is he going to lose the job to Jahdae Barron? And I think it's so ridiculous because it's a very obvious case, in my opinion. It's the guy looked great until he had the torn MCL, and then he played T. Higgins in primetime, or sprained MCL, excuse me, and it didn't look so good. He's a very good cornerback. He got tested relentlessly last year. He had one of the 3 cornerbacks to win Defensive Player of the Year over the last 30 years opposite of him. Him and JQM got targeted nonstop, and JQM's limitations, I think, were on display a little more than Moss, who all season long was locked down. I think PFF's flawed, but even with his cold close to the season, he was the highest graded Broncos cornerback, for as ridiculous as that is. But it's a compliment to how good Moss was in his own right still. I'm so excited because Ryan's hyping up the depth they have at cornerback, which they absolutely do. But man, the edge rushing group, that's what Ryan and I were giddy about on Friday. It's like, I mean, this is lofty praise, but like it makes me think of like the Giants, like the 2011 Giants, or like even the 2015 Broncos, where it's like, oh my God, how many pass rushers do they have? Or like the 2017 Eagles, like a group like that, where it's like, you've got the front line, which we all know, all those pass rushers, but then like Jonah Ellis was getting pressures and he's injured. Q Robinson and Dondre Tillman were maybe the best defensive players on the field. It felt like every drop back, Bo or Jarrett Stidham were having to step up in the pocket or scramble for their lives or extend the play in some creative way. And it's just in training camp, you can start to see the makings of, I think, like last year's defense was really, really, really good. I think this year could be like special. And I don't like being the training camp hype guy. I just, man, like the pass rush seems relentless. And then you look on the back end and it's like, oh, well, did they miss a receiver? And it's like, everyone's got a corner in their hip pocket. I just, maybe the linebacker thing ends up being the Achilles heel, but the front end looks ridiculous and the back end looks ridiculous. I mean, it's insane.
Can you guys tell a difference? Because like, I've gone to a lot of the training camps before, and you have expectations based off training camp that you're seeing, and you're looking at things. You're like, man, the Broncos might be pretty good this year. But actually looking at a team, a winning football team that was last year, and only have built on that in the offseason. Ryan, do you think? I know it's early. I feel crazy even asking this question, but early at least. Can you tell a difference from past Broncos training camps to this one, just looking at the talent on the field?
Yeah, certainly. You're right. I mean, it is early, but I'd say something that we've kind of noticed over the course of the offseason, and why I was kind of giving Zach a hard time about Troy Franklin, because these are things that we've been watching out there at practice, all season, all off season, building up to this. And talent-wise, yeah, I think you could make some of those arguments, but we're usually pretty excited about some of these guys, and until we get to the preseason and then go, okay, yeah, some of these guys didn't really show up the way we wanted to. Hey, some of the narrative might change just slightly even tomorrow after pads. We may get done with that and be like, that guy, Q Robinson, I don't think he'll have a fall off, but to that point, like say Q Robinson's been just a dominant force all off season. That Friday practice, even yesterday's practice, I mean, Q Robinson is just silly out there. Okay, well, when the pads come on and Matt Parrott can really, chuck him to the ground, okay, what does that look like? I still think at 6'5", 200 and whatever, 50 pounds he is, I don't think that's going to happen. But, it's going to be interesting to see that. But I think that the processes seem smoother, especially with the offense. And Zach maybe can back me up on that. I just, watching how the offense, especially the first team offense, operates, Bo doesn't look like he's figuring it out on the fly. He looks like he kind of knows where he wants things to go. I noticed on Thursday's practice, which was kind of, it was a ramp up kind of acclimation period. It was a lot like an OTA practice, but the ball was coming out really fast, and that's because the defensive pressure was coming right up into his lap. To Zach's point, but he wasn't panicked looking back there. It didn't look like, well, I'm going to go ahead and scramble around and hope something figures out. It's like no, I'm going to make a play. I know there's going to be some options. It looked kind of like controlled a little bit more. And I think that smooth process is really kind of filtering to all aspects. I had a chance to chat with Nick Benito yesterday for a little bit. And, I sort of asked him about, how the coaching continuity has helped him kind of go from what he was in year 2 to year 3, and now what he hopes to do in year 4. And he absolutely echoed that. He's like, yeah, I mean, just the consistent coaching that we're getting. And he's like, certainly the processes we're using in the off season to build to this is absolutely helping my productivity as well as the rest of the defense. So to your point, talent is definitely better. They've retained a lot of it, but also I think the process is because the coaching's been consistent has helped.
Yeah, I mean, the Broncos have changed coaches so many times. It's nice that we're having some consistency in training camp and even an idea of how the roster is built. And I'm sure that is noticeable through this time. And you segued me right into it, and I'll throw it to Zach on this one. Let's talk about Bo Nix. That's the big one, right? I think what Ryan was talking about, how more in control he looks, that's the major thing. Zach, we've talked about this on the show a billion times. Man, he had a really good rookie season, and if we can just see him build upon being in control, not scrambling out in some of those situations when unnecessarily stepping up in the pocket and delivering that throw, giving the play a little more of time for it to develop, right? Zach, can you echo what Ryan was saying in that it does feel that way?
Yeah, the words that have been coming to mind the most for me are controlled and intentional. I think like that, some of Bo Nix's most amazing highlights from last year. I think like that first Chargers game and the Bucks game, he's got a couple of those like crazy dramatic scrambles where he's practically doing circles back in the pocket and somehow finds a way to escape and like gallops downfield for 15, 20 yards. And they're positive plays. They're amazing plays. But it's also emblematic of a rookie, in my opinion, being like, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God. Like there's a dude right in front of me. I got to turn left. Oh my God, there's another dude there. I got to turn back the other way. Like it's just like playing with his, like a chicken with his head cut off. And it worked. Like I'm not even trying to dog Bo Nix here. He was trying to find success however he could find it, as you know, he was like laying the track down as the cart went over it, Looney Tunes style. Now it feels more like he's got the plan. Like, oh, there's pressure coming from my right side. Like I know the answer to, like I know the solution to that problem. I know the remedy there. A better understanding of the offense, and then something that I think has to do with the continuity point that Ryan is hitting on with coaching, but then also the continuity with the quarterback and everything. I don't think I've ever, like, even with Russ and even with like Teddy or Case Keenum, I don't think I saw the quarterbacks pulling the receivers aside too much to talk about what they wanted on a particular route, in part because, it was either a new quarterback learning the ropes of whatever, or it was a new offense. And so they were learning the ropes of whatever together. And this time around, it's the same offense. It's the same quarterback. It's the same weapons for the most part. And I saw multiple times in the one practice I was there, but pulling Cortland Sutton aside, pulling Troy Franklin aside after a route, even if it was a completion, thought after completions and incompletions. And you could see, like, I couldn't hear what they're saying, but you can tell just from like hand movements, they're talking about, what he wants on the certain route. And I think like tuning those finer details, those are things the Broncos offensive architecture was never getting to. They were always having to like relay the foundation. And now they're actually like, getting some interiors put together and like finishing a house instead of leaving it up with like the Tyvek paper on and whatever.
I love it. I love it. You guys are literally hyping me up right now. It's making me
I'm feeling too hyped, Joey. I'm feeling
making
too
me
hyped
want to go stand in the
I'm
heat
worried
right now. That's what I'm right there. I don't know. Maybe with the bleachers, the hot metal, I might be able to. No. All right. So a lot of positives. I think we've talked about a ton, and I think there's a lot more positives than negatives with the Broncos. But I do have to ask you, Ryan, are there any concerns you've come away with in training camp so far?
Well, I mean, health is going to be the number one, right? I mean, I'm not saying Drew Sanders is going to cripple the defense, but it's a depth piece that you were going to make the 53 with, right? So it was at a position group. If we all talked to ourselves during the off season about the things we'd be concerned about, we'd say, yeah, well, inside linebackers, off the ball linebackers, boy, you got a couple of guys at the top of that list that are injury prone, seems strong, but dealing with that over the course of their career, specifically Greenlaw, who you brought in and paid a lot of money to, and Alex Singleton coming off an ACL. It was nice to see Drew Sanders get all the reps during the offseason, along with Justin Sternad. And Sternad, of course, is kind of a workhorse guy. He's a good special teams player, but we know what that looks like. You don't really want to make that a plan all season long. In spurts, he can make some plays, but you need something more there. So, the relative health of this team is like a lot of NFL teams, is going to be a significant point. I'd say of what's happening out there in the field, nothing significant yet. There were a lot of drops yesterday that I wasn't too thrilled about, but it was also their first red zone day. So, hey, let's tighten that up a little bit. I'm sure the coaches will talk to him a little bit. There's just a lot more balls on the ground. There was a lot more miscommunication stuff that just probably didn't need to be there, especially for as fluid as they've been throughout the course of OTAs and into the early parts of training camp. So that's kind of it. But once again, it's like you don't freak out about that stuff too much. I think like a lot of things with training camp, and I know both of you have been out there enough days to know this, it's an ebb and flow. It's hey, you take every single day and then you kind of try to blow up into a big picture over the course of several weeks, rather than, okay, well, this one day I know everything I need to know. You don't want to watch one practice and say they're only going to be 9-8. I know that now forever. Like nobody says that.
Right.
No one's serious. No one serious would ever say such a thing.
Well, okay, this question just came to me, guys, and last question here, but this is one that I've been thinking about recently, and both of you guys have gone to more training camps than I have, so you can answer this for me. Do you think there are specific skill sets that work better in a training camp setting than others? Do you think there are ones where it's like, man, this guy doesn't really look that good, but it's just because his skill set doesn't transfer necessarily to a practice setting? He's just a game type of guy, full pads, contacts hitting, and vice versa. Do you think that there's some skill sets where it's like, man, in t-shirts and shorts, this guy is amazing? Ryan, do you think there's anything to that?
I mean, if we want to talk about Tim Tebow, we could do another. I got hours, guys. I mean, we can go. One of the worst practice rep guys I've ever seen in my entire life. But boy, once the lights came on, come on, it was magic. What else are you to say? Yeah, there's something to that. I hearken back to the days of Cody Latimer, for example. When he would kind of ball out during training camp, and it just really wouldn't quite translate during the season. But every single year we get to training camp. I don't know if there's a specific type of player, to your point, like if there's an archetype there. Yeah. I mean, certainly athletic guys, they're all athletic, but like there are guys that lean on the athleticism, and that can get them so far. But it's the ones that really kind of know the playbook and can play within the structure, and can use that athleticism in the structure. Those are the ones that usually can do great on Sundays as well. But we do have some guys that'll show up and they'll pop during training camp, and then you kind of just don't, or preseason, and then they just don't really do much else. And I think a lot of that has to do with just kind of their ability to work with everybody else and to work within the confines, and the structure does matter. So I sort of answered it. Maybe I might. Yeah. We can go back to Tim Tebow if that helps.
Yeah,
that helps me.
Definitely helps. I think you nailed it. That's the ultimate gamer right there. I've never seen anybody like that. Zach, for you, do you think there is like a skill set, or are you more in Ryan, or just kind of like some guys are gamers and some guys aren't?
I mean, I think I fully agree with Ryan. And I think there is like that mental component, whether it's like you get up for the big moments, or like a Keenan Allen, like I'm just craftier and like more precise than you. I think those things sometimes don't always shine in camp. So I definitely agree with him there. I also think like, at least from a fan perspective, any player that would typically be like impeded by contact is going to look amazing in training camp. Like any running back, I don't care what type of, but especially like a speed back, any running back though, because they're not getting tackled to the ground, and they're just like, screw you. I'm not going to stop here and say I got tackled for a 5. I'm going to keep trying. I'm run. No, that was a 20-yard gain. And like, it's the most ridiculous nonsense. So running backs in particular. And then like, as you were asking the question, I couldn't help but think of Montrell Washington. I mean, he's like I think that type of like little fast dude, especially on offense. If you're a little fast guy on offense, I think you can look a little inflated in training camp. And then, last one, I'd say like also to this point, the trenches, I think, and it kind of ties into a concern. Like I'm a little concerned by how we're seeing the O-line get their butts whipped these last few days. However, that said, I'll acknowledge they're not really allowed to block. Like edge rushers, they're tackling, so it's a contact position. But at this stage at camp, you're not tackling. So the only contact that's happening is the O lineman engaging with them and hitting them. Well, the O linemen aren't able to do that. So they're pass rushing against air practically, and so that can inflate things too. So that's kind of my, I think certain positions it certainly favors, and then archetypes, it'd be the little fast guys.
No, well, I appreciate you both. I think it's just like kind of interesting to hear about, because there's so many things coming out about these players, and does the practice necessarily translate to the game? And if so, what does? So I appreciate both of you guys answering that. But Ryan, thank you so much for joining us today. It's amazing having you in here talking about training camp, being that you've been to so many of these things. I remember my first like training camp where I showed up in a lot of days. I came up to you and was like, what are you looking at here? Right. So it's great having you part of the show. And yeah, thank you, Ryan.
Anytime, fellas. Appreciate you inviting me.
Yeah, of course. Well, everybody, until next time, go Broncos.
Go Broncos. See you.